like I said, this is about divorce and marriage. But first, what I want to do is give some insight, and I'm gonna have do it by Tony Evans, because I think he could say it a little better than I can. And what we're going to do is, while he's speaking, I'm going to stop it every now and then so we can comment on what he had just said. Notice he said 6 or 7 years, because in today's world, people, they're not looking really long term. You know, you look at, we had just talked last night about Kim Kardashian, how she goes through so many men. Back in the day, Elizabeth Taylor, she had gotten married 7 or 8 times. I had lost track. She probably did too. But the way I see it, I'm seeing things are, and I'm say a lot of women, talking about the younger ones, they're looking at marriage as a great event, okay? And it's all about that one day, you know, getting married. But what about afterwards? You know, because I think we may have talked about a situation where somebody got married and then the next day they got divorced. I mean, just a one-day turnaround.
I'm like you said, most people look at that date, the grandness of it, and how we're gonna present ourselves and how we're going to make ourselves look, and a lot of times it's about what's the word I'm looking for, image. And so, but then
the show,
and then nobody really thinks about after that, because after that, even on that day, everything is just busy. You're doing this and you're doing that, but because you're excited. But then the real test comes when you actually get married. You know, how to live with this person, because you got two imperfect people coming together,
trying to make something perfect.
Trying to make something perfect when both are imperfect.
That's right.
And so it'll take God to show each one their imperfections in order to survive the marriage.
Right.
Now, to me, there's young children, or young girls, or young men today, mainly young girls, they think about, oh, that's my escape away from home. Let me go ahead and get married. Oh, he said he loved me. Let me go and get married because I'm tired, I'm ready to be out on my own. And then they go and marry this person thinking they're going to be, you know, just going to be hunky-dory, and once they get out there, it's almost like home, and sometimes it's worse than you being at home with your parents. And they could be worse and controlling and this and that, and so they realize after they done got married and everything. Now, I made a big mistake, you know, but sometimes they do it because they want to ready to leave home. They're ready to leave the nest, and maybe this is a way for me to get away from home, you know.
Right. Continue.
God speaks to the issue of his attitude toward divorce in light of his definition of marriage. The Jewish leaders have been bothered that God has rejected their worship. God is not accepting their worship. He says that this is another thing, verse 13, you cover the altar with your tears, and he no longer regards your offering. He said your worship is a waste. They say, why? Because you have dealt treacherously with the wife of your youth. She is your companion and your wife. And here is our word, by covenant. There it is. In that one word, God has defined marriage. She is your wife, your mate, by covenant. The reason that divorce is very hard in Scripture, very narrow in Scripture, very difficult to get in Scripture, is because marriage is a divinely covenanted relationship.
And I just want to throw this out there again. What is a covenant?
It's an agreement.
Right. It is an agreement between that man and woman in agreement with God. God's covenant with himself and man, that man and that woman, is a triune thing. He takes that very serious. But as you see in today's society, not enough people take it serious. You know, anybody can go to the justice of the peace and get married, but if you notice, it includes God. Now, some situations they try to extract God out of it, but God is the institutor of marriage. If that's a word I just made up, I think. But he initiated marriage. He proclaimed marriage. You know, he put his stamp of approval on marriage. So, and I try to tell anybody who's about to get married, it's a serious thing. It is a serious promise that you make before the Lord and that you make before your future spouse. That is nothing to be played with. So therefore, when you are about to make that commitment, you got to remember and be acknowledgeable of that it is a lifetime, or should be a lifetime commitment. Again, between you're making that commitment also to God. No one to be played with, and he is very, very, very serious. And just like Tony Evans said, it's a narrow covenant, so to speak. He makes it narrow on purpose because he doesn't want you to jump in and out here and there, you know, as a lot of people like to do today. But, and I tell people, you make sure it is someone that you think you're going to be able to handle throughout the years. Because it can't be, she don't know how to cook eggs like my mama do. I think I need to bail out. No. You need to take in all these things into account beforehand. Just because she may look pretty, or just because she may be shaped a certain way, or just because, and vice versa, just because this man looked great, just because he make a lot of money or whatever, you still got to take into account the family, how you want to deal with the families, you know, because that comes into play too. There is a package deal. All that comes as a package deal. The personalities, you know, are you going to be okay with their little quips? Are you going to be okay with their little nuances? Are you going to be okay with the way they speak and how they dress? And because some people, they get into a marriage and think, oh, I can change this person. Oh, that is the wrong, you know, last thing you should be trying to do. You know, you see them as is.
That's right.
It's like you go into a store, you buy them as is. You're not, okay, I get this iPhone, and I'm going to change it into this is a 13, I'm going to change it into the iPhone 14. Now, 14 hasn't even come out yet, but I'm going to change it into that. No, you're going to get as is. Now, yeah, it can update, just like we can update as we go on through our lives, okay? But it's not guaranteed we're going to update. So you're going to have to buy as is. But a lot of people, they think, well, I'm going to change this person and change that person. It don't work out that way.
I'm going to ask a question.
Okay.
When you talked about covenant, do you think that a person could be in the wrong covenant with someone? So when they marry them, could they be in a wrong covenant and then they get out of it, but you still can't just get out of it even though you're in the wrong covenant?
That's why I say you got to make sure who's who.
But it's hard these
Because
days.
you can, again, see, a lot of people can jump into marriage or situations or relationships ahead of themselves and not be equally yoked,
Right.
you know, with that person. And they can get into a situation where they think, okay, this person will have to catch up, and sometimes that person may never catch up, you know, and you can pray and so forth. Sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. With prayer, because that other person has to be willing, a willing participant. He or she has to be willing to allow God to come in and do that upgrade, so to speak, do those changes. You know, we can pray all we want, but it still has to be that person who wants to. They have to want to make a change. They have to want to be on that situation spiritually with the other person.
You know, it goes back to what you were saying earlier. It's like we have to, yeah, we can be in the wrong covenant because some people choose to ignore warning signs.
True.
In a sense, because if you got a Christian right here, and then you got, let's first say, an atheist over here, and then you come together, then you know that's just out of order. Because the Bible tells us don't be unequally yoked. Because I've heard situations where things like that happen, and the one want to discipline the children when they have kids, they want to discipline them their way, and the other one wants to discipline the kids this way, and then all of a sudden they clash.
Right.
Because they can't come to an agreement because they're unequally yoked. But even, I would say, in instances where people they can be in the wrong covenant together, But even when they come into God's covenant, and they allow God to work in that marriage, God can change it. He can change it. And as Minister Marvin said, if they want to change. Because these people don't want to change.
That's true.
They just want to keep doing what they want to do. And as the word said earlier, the Bible, you know, God told man, hey, you know, I'm not going to hear you because you've done treacherously with your wife or your youth. And so your prayers won't be answered. So we just have to, you know, like, I think Pastor Matt talked about marriage one time, and she was talking about, you know, we so googly-eyed that the signs be there, but we choose to not see them. It's almost kind of like we got blinders on,
Right.
and we're not seeing everything that we need to see.
It's not just a haphazard, let's go before a preacher and hear a ceremony and say I do and go home. It's a covenant. In order for me to set the stage, let me cite for you the three reasons God created marriage. And then I'm going to spend the rest of our time defining the word covenant. God created marriage for three reasons. First of all, it was to serve as a divine illustration. It was to illustrate the character of God. God is one God composed of three persons, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. We call it the Trinity. Marriage is one unit composed of three realities: a husband, wife, offspring, children, forming one family. God wanted there to be in history an illustration of how He is in eternity, three distinct realities composing one unit, the Godhead. In a family, three distinct realities composing one unit, the family. And God wanted to illustrate through these relationships His relationship to history. And so, as we will look at when we deal with marriage in the fall, it says, husbands, love your wife like Christ loves the church. It's not just about you loving, it's about Christ loving. And wives, submit yourselves to your husband, and the church submit to Christ. It's not just about you submit.
And it came to me also, and I've illustrated this before, when he says, husband, love your wives as Christ loved the church. And women, submit to your husband. And more or less, people get hung up on the word submit, but it's more about respect, respecting the husband. See, women want that acknowledgement of love. That's why it mentions for men to love their wives. And then it speaks about talking about Christ, the women submitting or respecting the husband, because men respond more to respect. When it comes to situations of relationships or in anything in general, they want respect. And this is how, and that's why Jesus comes right off mentioning this.
But, and I get that part about respect, what men want, but I also see this as that man has to be that leader.
Oh yeah, now that goes without saying. I'm just saying in general right there for that spot right there. Now that we got other stuff to go into to hit that also.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is initially, I'm just going by what Christ said. You know, a lot of stuff just because you can go into talking about love or a woman. See what I'm saying? So we just like what Christ hit on that part right there. So we just stay on course on that. But we'll hit into that also.
And what he is saying is, unless you understand that marriage is designed to reflect God, you will keep it on the human terms only. And one of the reasons we are so quickly to discount marriage is because we have kept it on the low shelf. We forgot we're illustrating God. And once you stop looking at it as an illustration of God, and only as my happiness and my contentment, then of course when you're no longer happy and when you're no longer content, then you want to get out.
And also, that's another thing, we use the word happy, and I think he had brought up one time also, marriage isn't about happiness. Happiness is a conduit of marriage when it's going right.
I feel like if you're talking about I'm not happy anymore, I feel like, well, it's within yourself. I mean, that's how I'm feeling. You're dealing with not being happy with yourself.
Right.
If you feel happy and you this within yourself, then you're going to be happy in the situation you're in. But if you're dealing with issues within yourself, then you're not going to be happy, I feel like, in the marriage. I feel like if, like me, if I'm happy and a lovable person and everything, well, if I start turning cold and not happy anymore, you didn't make me like that. I feel like you might help contribute, but I feel like it happens within me. I have to find out what's making me not happy anymore. What am I dealing with in my life that's making me miserable? Because it's just to me, it's just not that person that you with. It's you yourself. You dealing with something within yourself.
You look at the Apostle Paul when he was in prison. He still maintained a happy persona even though he was in prison. So even say outside of marriage or relationship, just as you mentioned, within yourself, to make yourself happy.
No, but then there are, I guess I'm saying when there are things that someone can do to make you in that position feel like that, and that you want to get out. What another individual does or say or whatever, and they put it on them. But I feel like if you just getting married and now you just want to bail out and there's nothing extreme that has happened to make you feel like that, I feel like it's something that you're dealing with within yourself. I'm dealing within myself. I may be wrong. Because there's ways, I mean, there's stuff that you deal with in yourself that you can put pressure on the marriage. But then there could be that other individual, your mate could do that, put pressure on you to make you feel like you want to bail out, that you're tired. You know, so it kind of works. To me, it kind of works both ways, in a sense. Pastor used to say, if you can get past, I think she said, if you can get past the first year, you're doing good. If you can get past 7 years, you can hang in there. But these days, they getting 30, 40, 50 years, and they like, bye-bye, see you later. Yeah.
That's true. and then it goes back to, like you were saying earlier, what is it that you're searching for? After you've been together all those years, and you know, because when you look at, and I know I'm probably going off on the deep end, because that's me. I am who I am. All of a sudden, you know, when you think about people going through different aspects of their lives, because they're seasons, and so when people go through their seasons in their lives, you know, it's kind of like they almost kind of like flip on you. And you'll look at that spouse one day and you be like, you know, I see something else or whatever. And then you want to just, you know.
And they look at you, and I guess, you know, I might have picked up some pounds, and I mean, I looked at the small like I was, you know, or it might be something else that I'm looking at you, and then after a period of time, but see, to me, it's not about, it's something that you're going in within yourself, that you're discontent within yourself, you know what I'm saying? Like if I look at my husband and I'm just sitting there and say, man, I'm telling you, I just wanna, it's something within me that I am dealing with that I just don't want to be bothered anymore. And as you get older, I feel like that this is, and the marriage goes, when you're going through a marriage and different ups and downs, at some point in time you feel like, I'm not pleased within myself, something's going on, I'm tired, you know, and then you just be ready to bail out.
The second reason why God created the family and marriage was for procreation. God created marriage as the mechanism through which children would come. Now, God did not give children just so we could have lookalikes. The purpose for granting children was the replication of the image of God, so that children would be raised up in the homestead. In Adam's case, it was Eden. And then after they reached the proper age, they were not to live in Eden, thank God. They were to leave Eden and go to the rest of the earth. That's why God, when they get 18, makes them unbearable. So that you can kick them out and move them on. The whole idea, he said, was be fruitful and multiply, and the purpose of the multiplying, he said, in Genesis 1, is to fill the earth.
I like the spin you put on that, you know, they around that age it'd be unbearable, and they do it. It's kind of like a reminder for you, okay, they need to go.
Yes.
But some people, they want to hang on to their children, and so you start to ruin them.
Right.
You know, because especially for a male, you know, you're supposed to be out and about, but yet you've seen many times that people come into the office and the man is still living with the mother, and the man's like 50 years old, and she still has to do the appointments for him, you know, and she's basically taking care of him. And that's when, you know, that's the situation that's run amok.
It's like what he was saying. So, you have kids. God loans them to us. And so we're supposed to be able to raise them up in the way that we're supposed to in God. We can't still be holding a baby, a child, at 5 years of age and don't allow them to walk. Because they will never discover that they can walk.
Right.
And that's how some people are.
And we still see some people pushing the kid in a stroller and the kid is 5 years old.
And so you have to allow them to discover everything about growing up and about what they're supposed to do. Because at this age, you're supposed to be doing this. At this age, you're supposed to be doing that. And then by the time they get out of high school, then they'll know how to, you know, to live.
You remember the video we saw of, there was this couple, the son about 30 years old, and he's living at home, and the husband is like, okay, you need to get out and work, you need to contribute to the house, but the mother kept interfering, saying, well, he can do what he want to do, and he don't have to pay bills. That causes a schism between that husband and wife.
And you know, when you said about unbearable, they get unbearable, and I think leading even up to that age, 18, they begin, the teen, they begin to get unbearable. My baby said when she gets 16, she's going to emancipate herself. And I said, okay, and she said, but I'm going to still be here, and I still want to stay. I said, no, once you do that, this is done. You out of here. We're not taking care of you.
Something like that.
We're not going to take care of you no more. We ain't going to do nothing for you. You do that, you gone. And that's just it. But they do. They get unbearable. And that's why at that age, you say, okay, you're free to go. You can go, yeah.
If you want to emancipate yourself,
Yeah.
what you're saying is, I can take care of myself.
Right.
Okay, well then you go right on ahead and do that.
Yeah, and we see you later.
Yeah, it's funny how, you learn about stuff from, talking about emancipate themselves. Okay, open up the Bible and see what the Bible says about, about growing up and,
Right.
yeah, we want to open up other books, but yet when it comes to the Bible, okay,
Right,
kind of push that to the side because that's what, that's not a popular thing to do, especially at that age.
Right.
Okay.
That they might believe and establish their own homestead. But why? Because he made man in his own image. And so what God wanted was the proliferation of the image of God worldwide. So, what God is saying is, this is my covenant, and it is my rule, and it is my institution, so you must function under my guidelines. That is, if you want my blessing. And this is a fundamental thing in most young couples, and that's why, unless you understand this, and you just rush in and get married, then you're gonna mess up. Because the question you have to ask if you're single is, am I willing to live with this person for the rest of my life? Let me ask the question another way. If this person never changes, because a lot of people think they're going to change them after they get married. The question is, if this person never changes, if the makeup never helps them with getting better, whatever, if this person never changes, am I willing to live with them for the rest of my shaped up life? In other words, marriage must be put on the high shelf, not the lower shelf. You don't say just because the government or the lawyers have made it easy and quick and no law that, but I don't have to worry about it. You better worry about it if you're Christian because it's God's covenant. And he says, I'm going to witness stand. So there are people in our
I want us to go to Matthew chapter 19, verse 3. Remember, we're talking about the narrow path that God has made for divorce. And he only gives a few reasons. Everybody, y'all there? Okay. I'm reading from the NIV. Some Pharisees came to him to test him. They asked, is it lawful for a man to divorce his wife for any and every reason? And Jesus speaking, verse 4, haven't you read that at the beginning the Creator made them male and female? And that's another thing right there when we talk about marriage. Male and female, not male and male, as we see more and more today, not female and female. Because we were reminded of this with the situation with Brittany Griner, the basketball player, and how she speaks of missing her wife. That's always odd to me, and I hope that always will remain odd to me. But male and female. Verse 5, and said, for this reason, a man will leave his father and mother and be united to his wife, and the two will become one flesh. So they are no longer two, but one flesh. In other words, what I do reflects on my wife, what she does reflects on me. We are one. Therefore, what God has joined together, let no man put asunder. And here it says, let no man separate. Verse 7. Why then, they asked, did Moses command that a man give his wife a certificate of divorce and send her away? Verse 8, Jesus replied, Moses permitted you to divorce your wives because your hearts were hard. But it was not this way from the beginning. I tell you that anyone who divorces his wife except for sexual immorality and marries another woman commits adultery. See, that's another thing that people don't put into play. Because you got people out here who get divorced because, again, they didn't like the way the other one cooks. It had nothing to do with adultery. You didn't make enough money. I want to find somebody who makes more money. They get divorced for those reasons. So then you marry somebody else, and what happens? You are now committing adultery because now you have married someone outside of God's specified rules. But see, we don't take into account, talking about people in general when they get married. Again, they bring God to the altar. We're gonna marry. They put God in the mix, but then after the marriage, God nowhere to be found. And then even in the divorce, God's completely out of the picture right there because they have not gone to counseling or anything like that. They have not sought help and God's help on that. So they totally leave God out of the mix all through the process of being married, so to speak, in general. And especially when it comes to a divorce. Now, instead of having, and notice how when it comes to a divorce, God is nowhere near, so now we go to a judge, so to speak, courthouse, and get a divorce, and then boom, it's done. But no, because when those sit in that situation, afterwards, then you marry somebody else, well, you're still in the wrong. You are committing adultery. And a lot of people that's way above their heads in the sense that because they have not studied the Bible, don't go into that because why? Because they're afraid to step on toes. So they don't venture into that direction. Any comments on that? Okay. So, let me read it. I hadn't planned on this, but let me read it here on verse 10. The disciples said to him, if this is the situation between a husband and a wife, it is better not to marry. In verse 11, Jesus replied, not everyone can accept this word, but only those to whom it has been given. For there are eunuchs who were born that way, and there are eunuchs who have been made eunuchs by others. And there are those who choose to live like eunuchs for the sake of the kingdom of heaven. The one who can accept this should accept it. And so in other words, if you can't accept the rules of marriage, then don't get into it. Don't get into it because it comes with a price. It comes with huge, huge responsibilities that are not to be just shuttered away or passed off or the next fad. And another thing is, we as Christians let ourselves be complacent. We allow ourselves to follow the world's path instead of the world following us, especially when it comes to marriage. We get caught up in what the world is doing. We are not to be followers in that way. We are not to be followers. We are to be leaders, especially when it comes to marriage. We are to be leaders. We are to be examples. But yet, too many of us fall by the wayside. Too many of us get caught up in the world's way, and that is not to be. And God is not pleased with that.
Now, here you said about the divorce, you said that when you get a divorce from the individual, you can divorce an individual and be free to marry again. And it's only if they committed adultery or fornication or something like that. Or other things.
And I would tend to also think, now, I may be wrong, but just looking at the aspects of if this person is beating you every day, that's not love.
Okay.
I don't see it in the scripture, but like I said, I may be wrong, but I think that would be a reason also.
Okay.
You know, I think that would be a reason because abuse is not love. That person is not in the makeup of God. That is pure evil. So that would be I believe. Now, like I said, that I may be wrong on that, so I put that out there. But I believe that would be a situation where you're being beaten, they're almost to death, so to speak, and just you made a poor choice in marrying this person, but I don't think that that's not part of the deal in marriage.
Because just like you said, if someone's doing that, that's not love. Is what is,
remember, the word says to love your wives.
love your wives. Because if you, no man's gonna beat up on himself.
That's right.
Now let's see a lunatic.
So, and whether it be physically, mentally, emotionally, because there, like you said, there are some men that'll go home every day, they'll just say mean and ugly things to their wives or vice versa. God don't expect us to carry that. But even in the Bible, it says if you got to separate for a season. So, you gotta, because God didn't create us to be beaten on. He didn't create us.
Hold on a second. I'm glad you said separate for a season. And in that aspect, that person would be trying. And even say after, okay, you separated and then you get back and then that person is still doing it, then I truly believe, okay, that would be reasons for, okay, we're done. It's time to go.
Not to separate and go out and just live worldly.
Right. Again, then that's a good point to add also.
But to get thoughts together to
Right.
see God's perspective
Right.
and on what you're going through. Because people will do that and they'll just go out and just live worldly, but really still not seeking God on the situation.
Okay. Now what I want to do here is talk about the effects of divorce. Let's see. The effects associated with divorce affect the couple's children in both the short and long term. After divorce, the couple often experience effects including decreased levels of happiness, change in economic status, and emotional problems. The effects on children include academic, behavioral, and psychological problems. Studies suggest that children from divorced families are more likely to exhibit such behavioral issues than those from non-divorced families. A study on, right here says, Linda Wade analyzed the relation between marriage, divorce, and happiness using the National Survey of Family and Households and found that unhappily married families who had divorced were no happier than those who had stayed together. One broad-based study also shows that people have an easier time recovering after the death of a parent as opposed to a divorce. This study reported that children who lose a parent are usually able to attain the same level of happiness that they had before the death, whereas children of divorced parents often are not able to attain the same level of happiness they had before the divorce. So to me that's saying that that's saying that me, if I'm a child and I had two parents and one of them died, I'm able to cope better because of I lost that person. Because in that child's mind, they were still together, but because death happens to everyone, so okay, I can accept that. The hard thing is to accept, whereas I see the two of them, but they're apart. I was together with them, but now they're split, so now I'm going back and forth, you know, and they're trying to appease me and we're still one big happy family. No, we're not. We're not. We're not still one big happy family, because deep down that child is hurting. And again, it's not, see, marriage, it's not about just the individual. You affect everybody in the family. You affect everybody in the family. So when you venture out seeking elsewhere, then you become selfish. You become selfish, and you're all about me, me, me. Marriage isn't about me, me, me. Remember what the word says, we're one. The two become one. And then when you have children, especially, you know, that the children are there with you. That's a part of their upbringing. So when they see that divorce, their world is shattered. You have shattered their world, so now they're trying to figure out, okay, how do I navigate through this? I'm a child. How do I get through this? But then the parents want to sugarcoat it. Don't be upfront with them, and it makes for more of a mess.
I think so too, because when you got two people that have lived together, and like you said, then they have children that's coming to the picture, and you have those kids and they see that happy family and things are going good, and then all of a sudden it breaks them apart. It really tears one of the other spouse up when you separate each other, or when they separated, and then the children see that, so now they see the two bickering, so they're trying to figure out, okay, do I agree with mama or do I agree with daddy?
Kind of like choosing a side.
Trying to choose a side, and then it causes even more chaos. Because you may say, well, we just grew apart, but then if you grew apart but you're still bickering, because some people don't know how to come together and co-parent in a sense when they are apart. Because, you know, you telling the kids something negative about the other parent and feeling their head, and so then they're thinking one way, and that's just messed up. And that's the reason why the cycle continues.
And I'm glad you said co-parent, because there are situations where you can get a couple and because of adultery or whatever, okay, then they have to get a divorce. And that one could be trying to make the best of the situation, you know. So there are different layers to it. It's not black and white, just like Leah spoke about abortion. It's not just black and white. There are different levels to the emotions, to the feelings, to the whole thing. There are different levels to it. So you have to, depending on what the level is, you know. So we just have to, using the word co-parent, and that's the situation, trying to make the best of that situation, and trying to show that child love as much as possible. Now, that would be a different level, a different situation. It says a child affected by divorce at an early age will show effects later in life. They may make premature transitions to adulthood, such as leaving home or parent their own child early. Recent authors have argued that a major cost to children comes long after, when they attempt to form stable marriages themselves. Parental divorce leads a child to have lower trust in future relationships, compared with children of always married parents. Children of divorced parents have more positive attitudes towards divorce and less favorable attitudes towards marriage. The children of divorced parents have also been reported more likely to have behavioral problems than children of married parents, and more likely to suffer abuse than children in intact families. Also, I want to read here where it's talking about divorce. It says researchers have also shown that children of divorced or separated parents have higher rates of clinical depression, family disruption, and low socioeconomic status in early childhood increase the long-term risk for major depression. Seek formal psychiatric care at higher rates, and in the case of men, are more likely to die of suicide and have lower life expectancies. They also have acute infectious diseases, digestive illnesses, parasitic diseases, respiratory illnesses, and severe injuries more. When it comes to cancer, married cancer patients are also more likely to recover than divorced ones. Because especially when it comes to cancer, it's more about, from what I've learned now, it's more about the state of mind. And if you're in the depressed state, that hastens that cancer. Also, more have stroke and heart problems, rheumatoid arthritis, and osteoarthritis, an increased risk of arthritis for children later in life, and lower levels of hormone oxytocin in adulthood. Okay, that was a little tongue twister for me. And what I also wanted to go over and mention, okay, basically we're talking about the consequences of divorce. The children suffer. We've gone over that. Society suffers. Give me some examples of how society would suffer. Well, I'll give you one right here off the bat. For one, with divorce, the children, going back to the children again, okay, they can, because of divorce, go off into gangs. Okay, with gangs comes turmoil. With gangs comes violence. That affects society. That's one example right there. Anybody give me another one?
Sometimes when you going through a divorce, or you divorce, you get bitter and anger and bitter within yourself of what either one has done, or you going through, and then it affects your coworkers, it can affect people in your job, how you can snap at them, or how you can treat them, not meaning to, but actually because of what you're dealing with, it can affect them, and then they could take it to someone else because you had it within you, and then you could kind of give off that to them and then make them irritated or whatever, and then they could keep passing it on. And then, to me, that's how it can affect the work environment and, stuff like that.
And when I look at it as, more and more people wanting to live together, and not be married, because what they see,
Right.
especially in the church,
Good point.
if they see them, the people in the church getting divorced, then, or if they see divorce around them, they're gonna be like, well, what's the purpose?
Right. Why
Right.
get married?
Why get married?
Why get married?
If you're gonna be separated anyway, or if you're gonna divorce anyway, we might as well just live together.
Mm-hmm.
And so it sends the wrong message,
Right.
out there, because that's not showing, as you said, that is not illustrating, how God created marriage.
Right.
Absolutely.
So it sends the wrong message, and also we suffer financially.
Yeah.
Oh,
You
yeah.
know,
Mhm.
you suffer financially, whether it be that man or that woman.
That's right.
Both suffer financially.
Yeah, well, you were taking care of one home, now the homes are split.
Mm-hmm.
So now you
Right.
have to shell out money here, you have to shell out money there. So that's causing a
Or
lot.
where there was split, he paid this amount, I paid that amount, and then once the split, then you got the whole amount and he got the whole amount, like she was saying, and then it just puts a lot on you, especially if you are not making a high figure,
Mhm.
and you got low income, and then you gotta add lights and mortgage and this and that on top of all what you already have, then that sends you suffering after.
That brings a lot of stress.
A lot of stress.
And with that stress brings on physical ailments.
Mhm.
Yes.
Because mentally,
Mental.
physical illness can come on.
Mhm.
And also another reason is, and I'm getting ready to wind this down, is you entered marriage for the wrong reasons.
Mhm.
Whether it be money, whether it be just for the looks,
Mhm.
whether it be for just because you wanted to get married.
Mhm.
Now I tell anyone, be selective. Be selective in who you marry, because why? Because it is a promise to God. It is a covenant before God. And some people may not be into God. Well, okay, that's one thing.
Mhm.
Okay. But those of us who are, especially saved, we are more accountable, because we supposed to be knowing the Word. We supposed to be following the Word.
Mhm.
And we go into marriage, go into a relationship, we need to be certain, because how we go about it affects all around us. It affects our world, so to speak. It affects those who we come in contact with.
Mhm.
It's a whole long chain that affects a multitude of people.
Mhm.
But yet people don't think of it that way, but we need to start thinking of it that way.
Right.
And most of all, you put God first.
Mhm.
You put Him first every single day. It may be monotonous to you, but you put Him first. You make an effort to put Him first. Because when you put Him first, then everything else falls into place. When you have respect for Him, then you have respect for her, then she has respect for Him, and so on and so on. You put Him first, and you continue to keep putting Him first every single day. You may get tired of, you may get, no. You keep on, because why? We have to keep on. You get up every day. He blesses you to get up every day.
Right.
So acknowledge Him every day. Seek after Him every day. Don't go to the world for advice. That is the wrong thing right there. They got books on everything. This is the only book that we should be concerned about reading. about marriage, about relationships, about divorce. This is the only book. All the other books tap into this. They tap into it, okay, and they don't acknowledge it. But this is the only one. Well, that's all we got. I was able to get into the. I thought it was going to be 2 parts, but I still may venture into it 2 weeks from now to go a little further. But I'm glad y'all participated. Enough said.
Enough said.